Non-citizens are no longer allowed to vote in New York City. More fallout from Roe v. Wade being overturned. Ghislaine Maxwell is sentenced to 20 years in prison. And more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. 4 people were killed and dozens injured when an Amtrak train crashed into a dump truck in Missouri. A senseless tragedy involving a train wreck and a garbage truck. This is the one, everyone. This is the most 2022 story of the year. The only way this could be a better metaphor for this year were if the accident also involved a clown show. Their tiny car was hit, injuring all 30 clowns inside. One thing that's made this year so terrible is all the inflation. And according to a new report, as of May, 58% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. This is shocking that it took a pandemic for more than half of the U.S. to live paycheck to paycheck. I've been living paycheck to paycheck for decades. If it weren't for Taco Bell, I would have starved years ago. Which reminds me, thanks for putting giant Cheez-Its in your food, Taco Bell. Helping me stay classy while on a budget. At least Californians will soon receive some relief from inflation. California officials announced that $17 billion of the state's budget would go toward inflation relief. Most of that will go toward direct payments, with some families eligible to receive up to $1,050. Governor Gavin Newsom said California's budget addresses the state's most pressing needs and prioritizes getting dollars back into the pockets of millions of Californians who are grappling with global inflation and rising prices of everything from gas to groceries. And I'm sure this has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he's up for a re-election in the fall. This would be like a criminal defendant saying, "What do you mean I'm trying to bribe the jury? Sometimes I just like giving people a little bit of cash back from what I stole from them. I give it back to the people." California residents will appreciate this, though. I mean, after all, $1,000 in California is almost enough money to buy half a tank of gas and a slightly used Subway sandwich. Thanks, Gavin. Meanwhile, in New York City, a state judge blocked a law passed by the Democrat-controlled city council that allowed hundreds of thousands of non-citizens to vote after being residents for only 30 days. The judge said allowing non-citizens to vote is unconstitutional since New York State's constitution says that every citizen is entitled to vote. And Republicans said it would have invited massive voter fraud. In response, the Democratic City Council said, "This isn't fair. How are we supposed to win if you don't let us change the rules to give ourselves an unfair advantage?" Actually, they said something about voter rights, but I assume that's what they were thinking. Speaking of controversial rulings, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that a public school was wrong for punishing its football coach for praying on the field after games. The football coach, Joseph Kennedy, had prayed on the field for years without incident until another school's coach informed the principal. Then the school told Kennedy to stop, as it might be seen as the public school endorsing religious activity. Kennedy refused, was put on leave, and sued the school. The Supreme Court ruled this was a violation of his First Amendment rights. With Justice Neil Gorsuch writing in the majority opinion, the Constitution neither mandates nor tolerates that kind of discrimination. I agree with this ruling. I think they should allow people to practice any type of religion during a sporting event. Personally, I'd love to see a ritualistic human sacrifice at the beginning of every Cleveland Browns game, because making a pact with the devil is the only way they'd ever win a division championship. More after the break. Welcome back. The Supreme Court has been busy the past few weeks. They ruled that Biden could end Trump's Remain in Mexico border policy, which required migrants seeking entry into the U.S. to wait in Mexico until they received a hearing. And they ruled that the EPA can't pass regulations on power plants' greenhouse gas emissions without congressional approval. Oh yeah, and if you haven't heard, they also overturned Roe v. Wade. This means that now each state gets to determine its own abortion laws without restrictions. We did an entire episode on the ruling and what it means. Please check it out since we spent a lot of time making an episode that actually explains what's happening instead of just fear-mongering. But speaking of fear-mongering, the White House warned that if Republicans regain a majority in the Senate and the House, that many ultra-MAGA policies would be implemented, like a complete abortion ban. I guess ultra-MAGA really tested well in their focus group since they keep trying to use it. Gender Policy Council Director Jen Klein said, already Vice President Pence and GOP leader McCarthy have announced their support for a nationwide ban on abortion, passed by Congress. No woman in any state, no matter how pro-choice that state is, would have the right to choose. Abortion would be illegal everywhere. In response to this, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy probably thought, thanks for the free advertising. This is like if Burger King ran an attack ad saying, if you go to McDonald's, you're going to get a quarter pounder with cheese and a shamrock shake. Is that really what you want? And a bunch of people, especially in the Bible Belt, are thinking, heck yeah. Okay, actually though, McCarthy told CNN he would back a nationwide abortion ban after 15 weeks of pregnancy, which would actually put the U.S. in a similar situation to most of Europe. I guess according to the Biden administration, most of Europe is ultra-MAGA now. Biden's Gender Policy Council Director also said that Congress will either protect women everywhere or strip away their rights everywhere, which is clearly untrue. Those are not the only choices. I feel confident that no matter who gets elected in the midterms, Congress will continue to do nothing everywhere. Meanwhile, the overturning of Roe v. Wade set off a series of legal battles in states with abortion trigger laws. These are state laws that were put in place to be triggered if Roe v. Wade ever got overturned. And now that it has been overturned, these laws go into effect to restrict abortion. But judges have temporarily blocked these abortion trigger laws in Utah, Kentucky, and Louisiana. Louisiana's trigger law banned abortion at any stage of pregnancy and didn't have exclusions for rape or incest. This exposes women to possible lawsuits or jail time, which is surprising, since usually all exposed women in Louisiana get are Mardi Gras beads. But a lot of people are celebrating the repeal of Roe v. Wade, like Illinois Representative Mary Miller, who had this to say at a Trump rally last weekend.
On behalf of all the MAGA patriots in America, I want to thank you for the historic victory for white life in the Supreme Court yesterday.
Victory for white life. Woof. Did somebody leave a bunch of banana peels outside a psychologist's office? Because that sounded like one heck of a Freudian slip. Miller's campaign said she misspoke and stumbled while trying to say right to life. An unfortunate mistake, as you can imagine. The media was understanding that this was a perfect opportunity for some clickbait. Some called this a pro-segregation speech, while others said that Republicans went full white supremacist. You might expect a flub of this magnitude would spell doom for Miller's political aspirations, but if history is any indicator, as a candidate who stumbles over their words and says outrageous things that their team needs to immediately clarify, then I suspect Miller will one day become president. And after the break, wild testimony from the surprise January 6th hearing. Welcome back. A surprise session of the January 6th hearings was announced with 24 hours notice this week. At that session, former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson testified that Trump didn't think the rioters were doing anything wrong. Hutchinson also testified that she was told by another aide that Trump fought Bobby Engel, the head of his security detail, for control of the presidential SUV and tried grabbing the wheel in an attempt to get to the Capitol and join the crowd. Her hearsay made international headlines, even though it's unlikely to be true. According to one source, Bobby Engel and the Secret Service agent that was driving the SUV said they were willing to testify before the January 6th committee that Trump did not, in fact, lunge for the steering wheel to try and control the vehicle. And the Secret Service said the January 6th committee didn't even reach out to them before Hutchinson gave her testimony. Which makes sense. After all, the point of these hearings isn't to find the truth and help fortify our democratic process. It's about getting massive ratings, baby! But sadly, ratings started to slip after the first hearing, so they needed something to spice it up. But if they're allowing testimonies purely off hearsay, they may as well just put me on the stand. Ralph Wiggum told me Donald Trump and Miss Krabappel were in the closet making babies, and he saw one of the babies and the baby looked at him. Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison for her role in sex trafficking minors with Jeffrey Epstein. Responding to this verdict, Maxwell said, 20 years? Yuck! That's way too old for me. Just prior to her sentencing, Maxwell claimed jail staff threatened her and she was put on suicide watch. We still don't know her and Epstein's powerful elite client list, which Maxwell could potentially use as a bargaining chip down the road. And as long as that client list stays under wraps, I wouldn't be surprised if the guards around her prison cell stand by and watch as she commits suicide. Some might be angry Maxwell only received 20 years for her role in victimizing so many underage women, especially considering R. Kelly was sentenced to 30 years in prison for similar crimes. To that I say relax. In the end, it doesn't matter how many years the judge gave her, since Maxwell probably isn't going to last that long in prison anyway. The Kremlin announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin plans to attend the G20 summit this November. Really? Wow, that's pretty bold of Putin. Not just because almost every other nation at the G20 summit hates him, but also because Russia defaulted on its foreign debt for the first time in over a century, missing a $100 million interest payment on 2 bonds. The Kremlin denied this, saying they made the payment, but it was stuck in a Belgian clearinghouse. That sounds suspiciously like what I used to tell my old landlord. No, I paid the rent. The check just got stuck in the mail. But Putin says he's going to the G20 summit despite this, and also despite G7 leaders accusing him of committing a war crime. This is like showing up uninvited to a party where you owe $3,000 to the host and also stole and wrecked his car. Instead of paying him back, you get drunk and say, "You all think you're better than me?" Speaking of people who upset everyone by showing up unexpectedly, Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani called the police on a man he said attacked him at a supermarket and screamed at him over Roe v. Wade being overturned. According to Giuliani, "I feel this tremendous pain in my back, and I'm thinking, I didn't even know what it was. Luckily, I'm a 78-year-old who is in pretty good shape. If I wasn't, I would have hit the ground and probably cracked my skull." Wow, that sounds terrifying. There's actually a video recording of this brutal, vicious attack. Let's take a look. That pat on the back was somewhere between, "Congrats on taking 3rd place in the vegan chili cook-off," and, "Hey, don't eat that. This is a vegan chili cook-off." The man who accosted Giuliani was initially charged with 2nd-degree assault, which is a felony, but his charges were reduced to misdemeanors, mostly for harassment. This angered Giuliani, who said the video was deceptive. Was it? Let's analyze the attack again. This guy hit Giuliani's back and to the left, back and to the left, back and to the left. Was it this guy who actually hurt Giuliani? Personally, I think there was a second back patter. 53 migrants were found dead in San Antonio, Texas after being abandoned inside a locked trailer. Authorities suspect this is likely the work of smugglers or human traffickers. 4 men are in custody and were charged over the incident. President Biden commented on the situation, saying, "Exploiting vulnerable individuals for profit is shameful, as is political grandstanding around tragedy. And my administration will continue to do everything possible to stop human smugglers and traffickers from taking advantage of people who are seeking to enter the United States between ports of entry." This is obviously a tragic situation. The only thing that can make this more tragic is not scoring any political points from it. Texas Governor Greg Abbott tweeted that these deaths are on Biden. They are a result of his deadly open border policies. They show the deadly consequences of his refusal to enforce the law. 53 people died in one of the most horrifying ways imaginable, and politicians immediately use it as an opportunity to score points. American politics has turned into a team sport. But luckily, the Supreme Court just ruled we're allowed to pray during those, so maybe we can make a change and bring both parties together if we all hold hands, bow our heads, and perform a ritualistic human sacrifice. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below. And remember, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers. Be sure to visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. Contribute $1 or more per episode. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Or join our exclusive censorship-free social media community on Locals. Check out AmericaUncovered.locals.com. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.